So why do marginal costs matter? Marginal costs matter because they are able to tell suppliers and producers where and how much they should produce. And if producing one more unit of a good is going to increase or decrease profits. And that's really important because when producers are thinking about where and what to produce, thinking about marginal cost allows them to think, if I produce one more unit of a good, is that going to effectively increase my profits or decrease my profits? So marginal cost is really important because it allows producers to see the point at where they should stop production and where they're able to produce and increase their profits at the highest level. So jumping into average costs, as you probably guessed, average costs are the average of whatever we're taking. So in this case, we have average fixed costs, average variable costs, and average total costs. So only really important thing to remember for averages is you're just going to take the total fixed cost and divide it by the quantity to get the average fixed cost per unit, average variable cost per unit, and average total cost per unit. And so note that for, let's just take a random, so a quantity of 14,000, total fixed costs are 2,000. So we're going to take 2,000 divided by 14,000, which is 14 cents. For variable costs, we're going to take 5,000 divided by 14,000, which gives us an average variable cost of 36 cents. So our total costs at a quantity of 14,000 are 7,000. So we take 7,000 divided by 14,000, which gives us an average total cost of 50 cents. So average costs, not super complicated. Graphing average cost curve. So this is once again, just kind of to illustrate what the difference between fixed costs and variable costs are. So note that as you produce more, average fixed costs decrease and average variable costs increase. And that continues to occur where variable costs become closer and closer to total costs and fixed costs effectively move further and further away from average total costs. So now let's add on to that graph that we just saw with all of the average costs, the marginal cost curve. So notice that the marginal cost curve actually looks quite a bit different. And it looks, as I mentioned before, very hook-shaped. It has this increase up here where you have very high fixed cost initially, decreases a lot as you produce more, then starts to increase, and once again reaches a high point. So you can see that when companies are looking for where to produce, they're going to look for where the marginal cost is the lowest, and that is where they are going to choose to produce. So in this case, you can see that 10,000 is the quantity of 10,000 is where the marginal cost is lowest. And so in that case, companies will most likely choose to produce at a quantity of 10,000. So why is the average total cost curve U-shaped? Well, as quantity Q increases, average fixed costs fall, which pulls the average total cost curve down because we're producing more and more and more. And so fixed costs fall. But average variable costs begin to rise at a certain point. So notice we're falling, and then average variable costs start to pick up, and we start increasing again. So there's always going to be that bottom of the U where it's the lowest average total cost because fixed costs per unit are at their lowest and variable costs per unit are at their lowest. So let's take a look at the average total cost and marginal cost. So when marginal costs are less than average total costs, so this point here, from here over, we can see that the average total cost curve is falling. So note that marginal costs are less than average total cost, so we can see the average total cost curve is falling. When marginal costs are greater than average total costs, the average total cost curve is rising. So note, from this point on, marginal costs are above the average total cost curve, so average total costs begin to rise. And the marginal cost curve crosses or intersects the average total cost curve at the average total cost curve's minimum. So the intersection point of the marginal cost curve and the average total cost curve, that intersection point is where average total costs are at a minimum.